When my brother Jack announced his wedding, a wave of joy swept through the family. It had been years since we'd all gathered for something so festive. My wife Sarah and I immediately started talking about outfits, travel plans, and where we would stay. My 15-year-old stepson Leo also seemed excited. He had always admired his Uncle Jack. I remember him asking me, "Do you think I'll get to wear a suit?" I smiled and ruffled his hair. "Of course, champ. A very sharp one." A few days later, the formal invitation arrived. It was beautifully crafted, with golden details and sophisticated calligraphy. But then I noticed a specific line. "This invitation is valid for Mark and Sarah." No mention of Leo. Confused, I texted Jack for clarification. The reply came quickly. "It's a ceremony for blood relatives only. I hope you understand. Leo isn't really, well, you know." My hands trembled. I read the message twice, then a third time. I wasn't angry, not yet. I just felt something shift inside me. A cold, hard snap, like glass under pressure. I showed the message to Sarah. Her eyes filled with tears, but I could see she was trying to hold them back. Leo walked into the room asking what was going on, and all I said was, "We're not going to the wedding." That day I sat on the porch of our apartment in Brooklyn looking out at the city skyline. New York had always calmed me, even in difficult times. I grew up in this city just like Jack. Our parents, who came from the Midwest to try their luck here, always spoke about how family was everything. "Blood is blood, Mikey," my dad used to say. And now, ironically, it was blood that was tearing us apart. Sarah left for work at the school where she taught, and Leo went to school. I was left alone with those words hammering in my head. He's not really family. As if the 5 years I'd spent helping that boy with homework, taking him to soccer practice, teaching him to ride a bike in Central Park, meant nothing. I called my mom, hoping for some support. Mrs. Jenkins had always been the voice of reason in the family. "Mom, can you believe Jack doesn't want Leo at the wedding?" The silence on the other end of the line was telling. "Son, a wedding is a serious thing. There are traditions, there are meanings. Jack just wants the family together." "And Leo isn't family?" My voice came out louder than I intended. "It's different, Mark. You know it's different." I hung up, feeling that crack inside me expand. It wasn't just Jack. It was an entire ingrained mentality that I had never questioned until now. How many times had I repeated my father's words myself? Blood is blood. But that afternoon, as I waited for Leo to come back from school, I knew something had changed. When he arrived, throwing his backpack on the couch like he always did, I asked if he wanted to go get some ice cream at the shop on the corner. It was our Friday ritual, but today was Tuesday. "Is something wrong?" he asked, always observant. "No," I lied. "I just want to spend some time with you." We walked along the promenade by the river, with the Manhattan skyline in the distance. Leo told me about a geography project, about a girl named Juliana, who had smiled at him, about the math teacher everyone thought looked like an anime character. And as he spoke, everything became clear to me. This boy who didn't share my blood was my son in every way that mattered. We decided at that moment, without even saying it out loud, we were not going to the wedding. It wasn't a protest. It wasn't a fight. It was simply where we drew our own line. We didn't make a scene. There were no furious phone calls or social media rants. We simply didn't go. On the day of the wedding, I took Leo fishing at a friend's place upstate. Leo didn't ask again why we weren't there. Maybe he sensed the answer. Maybe he already knew what not really family meant to them. We cast our lines into the quiet lake, sat under a calm sky, and didn't say anything for hours. It was the best kind of silence. Jack never reached out after that. No one in the family did. Some sent photos of the ceremony. My sister Patricia captioned one with, "Wish you guys could have made it. It was magical." I smiled politely and replied with a thumbs up emoji, but each message felt like a small hammer blow to that same crack inside me. The weeks that followed were strangely normal. We returned to our routines. I dropped Leo off at school, picked him up from soccer practice, helped him with algebra. But something had changed. It wasn't just the wedding. It was the unspoken declaration that Leo wasn't enough. That my family, my blood family, had drawn a line that I refused to accept. One Saturday afternoon, we had an unexpected visit from my mom. Mrs. Jenkins arrived with a Tupperware of her famous cornbread and a tight hug. While Leo devoured the cornbread in the kitchen, she pulled me out onto the porch. "Jack asked about you," she said, adjusting her purse strap. "Said you're not answering his messages. I have nothing to say to him. Mark, this isn't right. He's your brother." "And Leo is my son," I replied, without hesitation. The word came out naturally, as if it had always been there, waiting for the right moment. My mom sighed, looking past our building toward the city lights in the distance. "You two have always been stubborn, you and Jack, just like your father." "This isn't stubbornness, Mom. This is about respect. He respected tradition, son. A wedding is sacred." I shook my head. "What kind of tradition excludes a child? What kind of God counts the DNA of his guests?" She didn't answer. She just squeezed my hand. Maybe, somewhere inside her, she knew I was right. Or maybe she was just tired of being in the crossfire between two adult sons. When she left, I found Leo on the couch playing video games. "Grandma brought more cornbread," he said without taking his eyes off the screen. "I saved you a piece." I sat next to him. In the game, his character was climbing an impossible mountain, falling several times but always starting over. "Thanks, champ. Your grandma was wondering why we didn't go to Uncle Jack's wedding." He shrugged. "I already knew." "Knew what?" "That he didn't want me there." He paused the game and finally looked at me. "I overheard you and Mom talking that day about me not being real family." I felt like I'd been punched. All this time, thinking I was protecting him, and he already knew. He was already carrying that weight. "Leo, look." "It's okay," he interrupted. "Really, I didn't want to go anyway. It would have been boring." He smiled, but it was that smile teenagers give when they're hiding pain, the same one Sarah sometimes gave when she talked about Leo's father, who disappeared when the boy was just 3 years old. That night, after Leo went to sleep, Sarah and I talked late into the night in the kitchen. She cried when I told her about the conversation with him. "He's so strong," she said, wiping away tears. "Stronger than us." "He shouldn't have to be," I replied. I looked out the kitchen window at the lights of the city that never sleeps. New York, as always, moved on, indifferent to small human dramas. I thought of all the families in the lit windows around us. How many other invisible lines separated people who should have been united? "Let's do something special tomorrow," I suggested. "Take Leo surfing in Long Beach, then have lunch at that Japanese restaurant he likes." Sarah smiled, her first genuine smile in days. "That would be nice." And so we did. We didn't talk about the wedding anymore, about Jack, or about lines in the sand. Instead, we created new memories, as if we were building an invisible fortress around our small family nucleus. A fortress that no words or exclusion could penetrate. One night, as I tucked Leo into bed, a ritual we maintained even though he thought he was too old for it, he turned to me and asked, "Did you ever wish I was yours for real?" The question hit me like a punch to the chest. I looked at him, this boy I had been raising since he was 5, the one whose nightmares I had calmed, whose school projects I had helped with late at night, whose first heartbreak I had helped him get through. Mine? He was more than mine. I sat beside him and said, "You are mine in every way that matters, and if I had the chance to do it all over again, I would still choose you." He didn't say anything. He just pulled up his blanket and turned over. But I noticed how his hand slid out from under the covers, just enough to reach for mine. That night, lying in bed, I couldn't sleep. My mind was going through legal documents, timelines, procedures. Sarah stirred beside me. "You're thinking about it, aren't you?" she whispered. I nodded. "I want to make it official," I said. "Leo deserves this, not because of what happened, but because it's time." The next morning, I had coffee at the corner deli with Sebastian, my college friend, who had become a lawyer. Between sips of espresso, I explained what I wanted to do. "Adoption of someone over 12 needs his consent," Sebastian explained, wiping cappuccino foam from his graying mustache. "But from what you're telling me, that won't be a problem." "What about his biological father?" "He abandoned him more than 10 years ago. No child support, no contact. We can argue emotional abandonment. It'll be a process, Mark, but it's possible." I left the deli with a weight lifted from my shoulders and a plan in my head. That afternoon, while Sarah was at school teaching, I took Leo for a walk in Prospect Park. We walked past the ruins and gardens, with a view of the city between the Mauer trees. "You know," I began as we sat by the lake, "I've been thinking about what you asked me yesterday." Leo was skipping stones on the water. "My bad for that. I was being an idiot." "No, you weren't." I put my hand on his shoulder. "I think about it too. And, well, I was wondering what you'd think if I tried to officially adopt you. Legally." The pebble he was about to throw dropped straight into the water. He looked at me, his eyes wide. "Like, I'd get your last name? If you wanted to, you'd be Lucas Silva Mendez." He looked down at the water where the colorful fish swam in lazy circles. "What would his biological father think?" he asked, referring to himself in the third person, something he did when the subject was difficult. "Ricardo made his choice a long time ago," I replied softly, "and we've made ours every day since then." Leo was silent for so long that I started to worry. Maybe it was too soon. Maybe I had jumped the gun. Then he looked up, and there was something in his eyes I hadn't seen before, a kind of certainty, a peace. "Okay," he said simply. "Let's do it." We walked back home holding hands, something we hadn't done since he was 8 years old. We didn't talk much, but we didn't need to. Some decisions are so right that words would only get in the way. That night I told Sarah while she was grading papers at the kitchen table. She dropped her red pen and hugged me, crying silently against my chest. "Thank you," she whispered, "for loving him like this." "It's not hard," I replied, kissing the top of her head. The following weeks were a whirlwind of paperwork, meetings with Sebastian, visits to the courthouse. The process would be slow, they warned us. It could take months, maybe a year. But we started, and that already meant something. Leo showed a new kind of confidence. At school, when a classmate made a joke about him not having a dad, Leo simply replied, "Yes, I do. We're just waiting for the paperwork to be ready." At home, he started asking questions about my childhood, about my dad, his grandfather he never knew. It was as if, by deciding to share my name, he wanted to know the entire story that came with it. One night, I found him in his room, looking through an old box I kept in the closet. Inside were photos of my dad, medals from when I played volleyball, in high school newspaper clippings about the small restaurant my parents had in Chicago in the 90s. "Sorry," he said quickly. "I shouldn't be going through your things." "There are things now," I replied, sitting next to him on the floor. "What do you want to know?" He picked up a faded photo, me at 15, the same age he was now, next to my dad on a beach that looked like somewhere in North Carolina. "You guys look alike," he commented. "That's what they say." I smiled. "They also say I have his temper. Stubborn, like a mule." Leo laughed, then became serious again. "Do you think he would have liked me?" The question caught me off guard. My dad, Carlos, had been a man of few words, tough sometimes, but with a huge heart. He died when I was 22, long before I met Sarah and Leo. "He would have adored you," I replied with sincerity. "He would have taught you how to fish in the ocean, Told you those exaggerated stories of his from when he was young in the Midwest. Gotten mad when you didn't finish everything on your plate. Leo smiled, satisfied, and continued to explore the box, discovering parts of me and now him that had been stored away for years. Meanwhile, I realized that for the first time in a long time, the name Smith didn't just feel like a label, but a living legacy that would continue through this boy who was worth more than 1,000 last names. The holidays arrived. Christmas was quiet, cozy, just the three of us. But I was planning something special for New Year's. I had contacted Sebastian weeks before, moved forward with the process, filled out the paperwork, and kept everything a secret. Sarah helped me wrap the documents in a small box, finished with a silver ribbon. I hid it under the couch, waiting for the right moment. At the apartment, we prepared our own feast. Sarah made her famous stuffing with bacon and cranberries. I was in charge of the ham, and Leo surprised everyone with a trifle he learned to make on YouTube. No trifle or it's not a party, jokes, he warned as he placed the dessert on the table, making us all laugh. Traditionally, we would spend New Year's Eve in Times Square like most New Yorkers watching the ball drop. But this year, we decided to stay home. Fewer crowds, more us, as Sarah put it. We wore white, as tradition dictates, and set up our small celebration on the apartment porch, from where we could see some of the fireworks from the waterfront in the distance. The night was hot, typical of a New York summer. The fans were on full blast as we ate, talked, and played cards. Leo was winning at canasta, as always, with that mischievous smile when he stacked another sequence of cards. "You're cheating," I accused, joking. "Just because you're bad doesn't mean I'm cheating," he replied, with that wit that always impressed me. As midnight approached, the city came to life. Horns, whistles, shouts of Happy New Year echoed through the streets. On television, the show in Times Square was in full swing, with some famous singer I didn't recognize hyping up the crowd. 10 minutes before midnight, I got the box from under the couch. Sarah looked at me with a knowing smile, squeezing my hand as I sat down again. "What is that?" Leo asked, pointing to the package. "A new tradition," I replied. "You open it on New Year's." When the clock marked the last seconds of December, we counted together. 10, 9, 8. On television, the crowd in Times Square did the same. 3, 2, 1, Happy New Year. Fireworks exploded all over the city, lighting up the New York sky. We hugged, wishing each other health, happiness, all those things you wish for when one year ends and another begins. Then, I handed the box to Leo. "Now you can open it." He looked confused, maybe expecting a video game or headphones. But as he opened the box and started to read the documents, I saw his expression change. First confusion, then disbelief, then something I can only describe as silent, overwhelming joy. "I'm adopting you," I said simply. "Your name will be Leo Smith Williams if you want." He didn't speak for a moment. Then he got up, came over to me, and hugged me harder than he ever had before. No fireworks could compare to that feeling. "Thank you, Dad," he whispered, and it was the first time he had ever called me that without hesitation, without awkwardness. Just Dad. Simple as that. Sarah watched us, tears streaming freely down her face, but with the most radiant smile I've ever seen. She joined the hug, and we stayed like that for a long time, an island of three people in the midst of the deafening noise of the city celebrating. When we finally broke apart, Leo was holding the papers as if they were made of gold. "This is, official?" "Not completely yet," I explained. "There are a few hearings, a few more papers, but we've started the process. By the end of this new year, everything should be finalized." "And at school? Will I have to change my documents there?" "One thing at a time," Sarah said, smoothing his hair. "We'll sort everything out little by little." We spent the rest of the night on the porch talking about the future, about plans, about what it would be like when everything was official. Leo wanted to know if he could get a new ID card, if his report card would come with the updated name, if he would need to tell his friends. At one point, while Sarah was making coffee to keep us awake, Leo turned to me. What do you think Grandpa Carlos would say now? I smiled, thinking of my dad, his rough but sincere way. He'd say, "Finally Mikey did something right in his life." Leo laughed. Was he that tough? On the surface, but inside he was all heart. I paused. Just like you. The sun began to rise over New York, painting the sky orange and pink. The last revelers were heading home, singing in the streets. Somewhere someone was still setting off late-night fireworks. "I think we should go to the beach," Sarah suggested, returning with the coffee cups. "Start the year with a swim." "Now?" I asked, surprised. "Why not? We're already awake anyway." And so, on the first sunrise of the year, there were the three of us, walking on the still empty sand of Long Beach. Cups and bottles from the previous night's celebration dotted the beach, but the ocean was calm, inviting. Together we walked into the water, feeling the waves wash away the old year and baptize the new one, with its new name, its new configuration, its same strengthened family. News travels fast in families. In a few days, my sister Patricia called. "Hey, you adopted him? Without telling anyone?" The tone was accusatory, as if I had stolen a family heirloom. Then came Jack. "So this is your New Year's resolution? To replace us?" I laughed, but not because it was funny. "You guys replaced yourselves when you told me he wasn't really family." January in New York is always a month of suffocating heat and sudden downpours. That afternoon, as the city recovered from a storm that had flooded half the neighborhoods in the borough, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. WhatsApp messages, missed calls, Facebook notifications. The entire family seemed to have woken up from hibernation to give their opinion on my decision. Aunt Nancy, my dad's sister and the self-proclaimed matriarch of the family after my mom's death, was the most emphatic. "Didn't you think to consult your elders before making a decision like that?" Her voice trembled on the other end of the line, somewhere between indignant and hurt. "The Smith name has a history, Mark. Your grandfather built that name since he arrived from the South with nothing. And what does that have to do with Leo, Aunt?" "Oh, don't be naive. This boy isn't a Smith. He doesn't have the family's blood." "He does now," I replied dryly. "On paper and in heart." She hung up without saying goodbye, something unprecedented in my almost 40 years of life. The family WhatsApp groups exploded. Cousins I barely saw since adolescence suddenly had strong opinions about my life. Uncle Joe, who lived in a suburb and came to the city maybe once a year, sent a 5-minute audio about how family traditions need to be respected. The irony was not lost on me. These same relatives who hadn't bothered to show up when Leo broke his arm playing soccer last year, or when he won the school's math championship, were now deeply invested in his last name. Sarah tried to calm me down, arguing it was just initial shock. "Give them time," she said. "They'll get used to it." But it wasn't just annoyance I was feeling. It was a mix of disappointment and relief. As if I could finally see clearly the invisible lines that had always been there, separating people, defining who belonged and who didn't. "Are you really willing to give up the family because of this boy?" Jack asked me when he finally agreed to have coffee with me after weeks of ignored messages. We were in a deli in the city near his office. Jack was in a suit, as always, his hair impeccably combed, the expensive watch on his wrist. The image of success, as our father always wanted. "I'm not giving up anything, Jack. I'm gaining a son. He already has a father." Who never showed up. Not even when the kid was in the hospital with pneumonia at age 7. Jack stirred his coffee slowly, avoiding my gaze. "It's different, Mark. You're forcing a connection that doesn't naturally exist." "How is love natural, Jack? It's a choice, every day." "Easy for you to say. You don't have real kids to compare." The words hit me like a slap. I took a deep breath, counting to 10 mentally, as Sarah taught me to do when I lose my patience. "I don't think we have anything else to talk about." I stood up, leaving some bills to pay for the coffee. Jack didn't try to stop me. At home, I found Leo studying at the living room table, surrounded by biology books. He had an important test the following week. I sat next to him, watching as he took notes in his clumsy teenage handwriting. "Everything okay?" he asked, without looking up from his notebook. "Everything's fine," I lied. "How's the studying going?" "Hard. There are a lot of complicated names," he paused. "Did you meet with Uncle Jack?" I hesitated, surprised. "How did you know?" "I heard you talking to Mom yesterday." He finally looked at me. "Is he still mad?" "It's not about you, son." "I know. It's about you." Leo closed the book. "Because of me." "No. Because of him. His stubborn head." I put my hand on his shoulder. "Some people take a long time to understand that family is more than DNA." That night, Sarah and I talked for a long time after Leo went to sleep. She was worried about the impact all this would have on me, on us. "Are you sure you want to go through with this?" she asked, lying beside me in bed. "I don't want you to lose your family because of us." "You are my family," I replied, hugging her. "The rest are just people I share some DNA with." But even as I said that, I felt a pang of sadness. I grew up with those people. Jack and I built tree houses together, defended each other in school, shared childhood secrets and dreams. How did we get to this point? The following week, I received an unexpected message from my cousin Daniela, Aunt Nancy's daughter. We weren't close, her being almost 10 years older and living in LA for decades. "Hi, cousin," the message said. "I just wanted to say I think what you're doing is brave. My mom will kill me if she finds out I'm supporting you, but someone in the family has to be on the right side of history. When everything calms down, I'd love to meet Leo." It was the first light in the midst of the family storm. Small, distant, but real. Maybe there was hope after all. Months have passed since then. Things are calmer now. The indignation has lessened, as have the phone calls. Family lunches no longer happen, but our small family nucleus has strengthened in their absence. Leo signs his schoolwork as Lucas Silva Mendez. He jokes about getting a personalized hoodie with the name. I told him I'd get a matching one. The New York winter, with its light chill and a sky of an almost painful blue, brought news. The first hearing of the adoption process happened in June. Leo wore his best outfit, jeans without rips, a blue button-down shirt, new sneakers we bought especially for the occasion. He was nervous, his hands sweating as we waited in the cold courthouse hallway. "What if the judge says no?" he asked in a low voice, looking at the polished granite floor. "He'll say yes," Sarah assured him, adjusting his shirt collar for the third time. "We have everything documented. His biological father hasn't shown up in years. You want the adoption, we want it." "But what if he says no?" Leo insisted. I looked into his eyes. This boy who carried more worries than he should. "Then we'll continue to be family just as we've always been. A piece of paper doesn't change that." The hearing was surprisingly quick. The judge, a middle-aged man with deep circles under his eyes and a monotonous tone of voice, asked Leo a few questions away from us. Then he called us in, checked the documentation, listened to Sebastian explain the case. In less than an hour, it was done, at least this stage. There would still be more bureaucracy, more waiting, but the hardest part was over. As we left the courthouse, we were met with a surprise. My cousin Daniela was there, holding a small bouquet of flowers. "I didn't know if I should come," she said, looking embarrassed. "But I wanted to meet the newest Smith in the family." Leo smiled, that shy smile he saved for moments of true happiness. Daniela handed the flowers to Sarah and hugged Leo, then me. "My mom is still furious," she whispered in my ear during the hug. "But it'll pass. It has to pass." The four of us went for lunch at a steakhouse downtown. Daniela told stories about our family that I had forgotten myself. About Grandpa Frank, who came from Ireland fleeing the potato famine. About how he met my grandma selling bread in Chicago. About how they started from scratch in America. "You know what annoys me the most about this whole story?" she said as we waited for dessert. "It's that Grandpa Frank would be the first to support you, Mark. He knew what it was like to build a family from scratch in a place that wasn't yours." On the way back home, Leo was quiet, thoughtful. I like Daniela, he finally said. She's like you. Yeah, they say all the Smiths have the same nose, I joked. It's not that. He paused. It's the way she talks, the way she laughs. Like, I don't know, like she's not afraid to say what she thinks. Sarah smiled from the passenger seat. That's definitely what he got from you, Mark. Sometimes I miss the idea of family gatherings, the warmth of shared memories. But I've learned something. Traditions built on exclusion are not worth preserving. Leo didn't need their wedding. He needed a dad who would stand by him, even in silence, especially in silence. The last time I spoke to Jack was in July, when he called to say his wife was pregnant. I'm going to be a dad, he said, his voice mixing pride with something else, maybe a late understanding. I wanted you to know. Congratulations, I replied, genuinely happy for him. It's an incredible journey. There was an uncomfortable silence. Then he asked, How's Leo doing? Good, getting to the stage of choosing colleges. He's thinking about engineering or marine biology. Is he a good kid? The question caught me off guard. The best, I replied simply. More silence. Then, maybe one day when the baby is born, maybe he'll want to meet his cousin. It was the first time Jack had referred to Leo as family. A small step, but a significant one. I'm sure he will, I replied, feeling something tighten in my throat. Yesterday we completed another stage of the process. Leo received his new birth certificate. It's official now. Lucas Silva Mendes. He held the document for a long time, running his fingers over the letters, as if he couldn't believe it. How does it feel? I asked. The same, he replied, smiling. But different too. That night, while Sarah was making dinner, I found Leo on the porch looking at the sunset over the city. The sky was tinged with orange and pink, the lights beginning to turn on across the metropolis. What are you thinking about? I asked, leaning on the railing beside him. About names, he replied. How important they are and aren't at the same time. What do you mean? He shrugged. Like now I'm a Smith-Williams on paper. But I was already your son before that, wasn't I? You were. You are. So why did it matter so much? Why did everyone get so mad? I thought for a moment, watching the seagulls flying back to some place to spend the night. People hold on to symbols when they're afraid to look at what really matters. Leo nodded, as if that made perfect sense to him. Maybe it did. This boy had always been wiser than his age suggested. They drew a line. I erased it, and in its place, I built a name, a bond, a home. Leo may not be my blood, but he is all of my heart, and that, I've learned, is more than enough. Next week, we're finally going to order those personalized hoodies Leo wants so badly. I thought of making it a surprise and also ordering one for the baby on the way, a gift for my future niece or nephew. Because in the end, family isn't who shares your DNA. It's who chooses to stay when it would be easier to leave. It's who sees beyond the artificial lines that others draw. It's who loves, simply,